The inquiry, often framed in a destructive and simplistic manner, echoes through the digital corridors of modern psychosocial discourse. It is a difficult question, one that is almost universally posed incorrectly. When individuals seek to understand how to crush a Sigma male soul, the underlying query is rarely about mere defeat or public embarrassment. The true, unspoken question lurking beneath the surface is far more profound. Where are the hidden fault lines in his formidable psychological foundation? What are the specific, deeply buried vulnerabilities of a man who appears so self-contained, so resilient, and so utterly indifferent to the conventional levers of social pressure and validation? The fundamental truth that must be grasped from the outset is that the Sigma male is, by his very nature, immune to the standard arsenal of psychological warfare that proves effective on other personality archetypes. Public humiliation holds no sting for a man who does not source his self-worth from the collective opinion of the crowd. Social exclusion is not a punishment, but often a preferred state of being. Challenges to his status within a hierarchy he does not acknowledge or respect are meaningless gestures. He exists on a perpendicular axis to the social matrix, and thus attacks launched from within that matrix simply whistle past him, leaving no mark. However, to state that he is invulnerable would be a grave misconception. There exist specific, profoundly impactful methods to damage his spirit, not through brute force or overt confrontation, but through a deep and insidious understanding of the few, sacred pillars upon which his entire existence is built. This is not an assault on his persona, but a targeted strike against his soul's core infrastructure. It is a violation of the fundamental principles that allow him to function and find meaning in a world he often perceives as chaotic and disingenuous. Before proceeding into this delicate territory, a crucial and non-negotiable disclaimer must be etched into the foundation of this exploration. The knowledge that follows is not a guide for manipulation. It is not a weapon to be wielded by the petty or the vindictive. Instead, it is a map of profound responsibility, outlining the sacred trust that is earned when one is granted access to the inner world of a man who bestows such access upon almost no one. To use this understanding with malicious intent is to fundamentally misunderstand and devalue the very essence of what makes the Sigma male a rare and valuable entity in the human ecosystem. It is an act of profound spiritual vandalism, akin to taking a master key to a unique and ancient temple only to defile its altars. The purpose here is one of comprehension, of fostering a deeper awareness that can prevent such damage, and of highlighting the tragic consequences that ensue when these sacred boundaries are violated. 1. The profound betrayal of hard-won trust, the vault and the key. The Sigma male's trust is not a casual commodity to be given away in the opening moments of an acquaintance. It is not earned through charming words, social proof, or shared affiliations. His trust is a meticulously guarded resource, a final, deliberated judgment rendered after a protracted and silent period of observation and assessment. This process can unfold over months, even years, as he quietly collects data on your character, your consistency, your reliability, and your hidden motivations. He is a master behavioral analyst, and his laboratory is the world of human interaction. His inherent reluctance to trust is not born of paranoia, but of empirical evidence. His life experiences and sharp observational skills are consistently demonstrated to him the fickleness, unreliability, and hidden agendas that govern much of human behavior. When he finally, consciously decides to grant you his trust, it is a moment of immense significance, though it may be communicated with little fanfare. He is effectively presenting you with a key. But this is not a key to a simple diary or a social media account. It is a master key to a high-security vault. This vault is located in the deepest, most protected chamber of his being, and its contents are the raw, unguarded components of his true self, his deeply held fears, his private aspirations, his unconventional philosophies, his past wounds, and his most genuine affections, the parts of himself he has shielded from a world he perceives as largely transactional and untrustworthy. Very few people are even made aware that this vault exists, let alone are invited to approach its door. The ultimate betrayal, therefore, is not a simple mistake, a white lie told for convenience, or a momentary lapse in judgment. These he can process and categorize. The catastrophic betrayal is a calculated, conscious exploitation of that hard-won trust. It is the act of taking the vulnerabilities he shared in a moment of rare and profound openness, a moment where he voluntarily lowered his impenetrable armor, and weaponizing them against him. It is using his own honesty, offered as a gift of authenticity, as a tool for your own gain or his deliberate harm. It is the act of feigning understanding to gain access to his core programming, only to introduce a virus. When you betray a Sigma male at this foundational level, the damage transcends the breaking of a simple social contract. You are not merely causing him emotional pain. You are performing a devastating act of existential validation. You are proving, in the most visceral way possible, that his deepest, most guarded belief system, the one that urged caution, that insisted on self-reliance, that suspected the world was ultimately untrustworthy, was correct all along. You become the living, breathing proof that his core defense mechanism was not only necessary but insufficient. The act of betrayal does not just break his heart, it shatters the fragile, hard-won possibility that his worldview could be wrong. It extinguishes the last flickering candle of his faith in genuine human connection. The resulting damage is not a temporary wound. It is a catastrophic system failure. The vault door, once opened, is now sealed forever, not just against you, but potentially against all of humanity. The trust mechanism itself is dismantled, its components scattered, deemed too dangerous to ever be operational again. 2. The systematic erosion of autonomy, the caging of a sovereign spirit. If trust is the vault, then autonomy is the very ground upon which the Sigma male's entire identity is constructed. His soul is architected upon the non-negotiable foundation of personal sovereignty. His freedom to think his own thoughts, to make his own choices based on his internal compass, to direct the course of his own life without external coercion. These are not mere preferences or luxuries. They are as essential to his psychological survival as oxygen is to his physical body. He is the sole monarch of his internal kingdom, and any attempt to usurp that throne is an act of war. The quickest and most effective way to suffocate his spirit is to systematically construct a cage around his sovereign entity. It is critical to understand that this caging is rarely executed through obvious, direct commands. A Sigma male would simply ignore such clumsy attempts, viewing them as the inconsequential noise of someone who does not understand his nature. The process is far more insidious and psychologically sophisticated. It is a slow, gradual construction of a prison using the bars of emotional manipulation and unspoken obligation. It is the use of guilt as a tool to compel compliance, making him feel responsible for your disappointment if he chooses a path that serves his own needs rather than yours. It is a creation of a complex, sticky web of duties, expectations, and shirts that slowly, over time, strangles his independence and ties him down. This manipulation often manifests as punishing him for exercising his natural needs. When he retreats into his necessary solitude, the manipulator responds not with understanding, but with accusations of abandonment, coldness, or neglect. They create drama or emotional distress precisely at the moments he seeks to recharge in isolation, thereby poisoning the well of his self-care. They pathologize his greatest strength, his self-sufficiency, framing it as a character flaw, a refusal to be a team player, or an emotional deficiency. They insist that his healthy independence is a problem to be solved, a wall to be torn down for the sake of closeness. When you successfully reframe his core identity, his self-ownership, as a defect, you are committing a profound act of spiritual violence. You are attacking the central process of his being. He begins to feel that his natural state of existence is somehow wrong, that his desire for self-direction is a form of selfishness, and that his very essence is a source of conflict. This creates a deep and agonizing cognitive dissonance. To be loved or accepted, he must fundamentally betray himself. A Sigma male in this position is like a wild predator forced into a domestic cage. He may physically survive, but the light in his eyes will dim, and his spirit will break under the weight of confinement his soul was never designed to endure. 3. The corrosion of his internal moral compass. Proving his integrity is a fool's errand. A Sigma male does not operate according to a socially dictated rulebook of ethics. His behavior is governed by a deeply internalized, personal moral code. This code is a bedrock of his self-respect, the immutable standard against which he measures his own actions. He practices integrity not for external reward, social approval, or to avoid punishment. He does it because to violate his own code would be an act of self-betrayal so profound it would fracture his sense of self. He will consistently choose a more difficult path if it aligns with his principles, even when the easier, more advantageous wrong is readily available and when absolutely no one is there to witness his choice. To crush this essential part of him, you must orchestrate circumstances that force him to confront a horrifying possibility. that his integrity is a strategic weakness, a fool's game in a world that rewards duplicity. This involves placing him in situations where his honesty is explicitly used as a weapon against him, where his transparent communication is twisted and used for another's gain. It is ensuring that his unwavering loyalty is exploited by those who possess no loyalty themselves, who see his commitment as a leverage point. It is making him witness, time and again, how individuals devoid of moral scruples advance, prosper, and succeed through deceit, manipulation, and corner-cutting, while he, by steadfastly adhering to his own rules of fair play, fall behind, is overlooked, or is even punished for his principles. When a Sigma male is subjected to this relentless narrative, it does not merely cause frustration or anger, it triggers a deep philosophical and existential crisis. If the fundamental operating principle of the world is truly that the unscrupulous are rewarded and the honorable are left behind, then the very foundation of his life philosophy, the code upon which he has built his identity, self-worth, and understanding of how to navigate reality, is revealed to be a lie. This is not an attack on a single action or belief. It is a virus introduced into his soul's operating system. The question, why be good, echoes in his mind, not as a philosophical exercise, but as a desperate plea for meaning. If his honor is a liability, then what is the point of the immense personal cost he has borne to maintain it? This crisis can cause profound shattering, leading either to a cynical, disillusioned withdrawal from the world or, in the worst cases, a tragic abandonment of his own code, which is a form of spiritual death for the Sigma male. For the desecration of his sacred sanctuary, poisoning the well of solitude. For the extroverted majority, solitude is often equated with loneliness, a negative state to be avoided and filled with social noise. For the Sigma male, solitude is something entirely different. It is not an empty void, but a sacred, fertile space. It is his sanctuary, his laboratory, his monastery, and his command center all at once. It is where he retreats to process the overwhelming stimuli of the social world, to recalibrate his thoughts, to reconnect with his authentic self, and to restore his depleted energy. It is in these quiet moments that he engages in deep work, nurtures his creativity, and remembers who he is, separate from the roles and performances required by external life. This solitude is his primary source of power, his root system. The most damaging violation, therefore, is not merely physically interrupting his alone time. That he can manage and deflect. The true damage is inflicted when you successfully poison the sanctuary itself. This is achieved by creating a persistent, inescapable backdrop of external drama and relentless emotional demands. You fill his life with so much chaos, anxiety, and obligation that even when he is physically alone, his mind is no longer his own. His quiet moments become infected with worry, with guilt for having taken the time for himself, with the anticipation of the next crisis he will be expected to manage. You transform his sanctuary from a place of renewal into a trigger for stress. You make him feel that his essential act of self-preservation is, in fact, an act of abandonment against those who depend on him. When you sever a Sigma male from his access to genuine, peace-filled solitude, you are effectively cutting him off from his own power source. You are like a technician who disconnects a sophisticated machine from its primary energy supply. The machine may continue to operate on backup batteries for a time, but its performance will degrade, its lights will dim, and it will eventually fail. A Sigma male without his sanctuary is a man disconnected from his core. He may continue to go through the motions of life, but he becomes a ghost of his former self, slowly withering without the sustenance that only deep, uninterrupted communion with himself can provide. 5. The burden of custodianship, forcing him to bear your emotional chaos. Sigma males are typically islands of emotional stability in a sea of human turbulence. They have, through necessity and inclination, learned to manage their own internal states with a high degree of competence. They handle their own emotional weight, process their own disappointments, and solve their own problems. Consequently, they operate with the implicit expectation that other mature adults will strive to do the same. One of the most effective, and sadly common, ways to drain his soul is to forcibly appoint him as a permanent custodian of emotional chaos he did not create and over which he has no ultimate control. This dynamic manifests as consistently dumping your unresolved emotional baggage, traumas, and self-created crises onto his plate. It is a refusal to take ownership of your own emotional state, instead making your feelings his responsibility to manage, soothe, and solve. He becomes a designated problem solver for dramas that are not his to solve, the unpaid therapist for wounds he did not inflict. Every minor emotional fluctuation becomes a five-alarm fire that demands his attention, energy, and precious mental resources he desperately needs to manage his own life and pursue his own goals. Initially, the Sigma male, operating from his core of integrity and competence, will likely attempt to help. He will analyze a problem, offer logical solutions, and provide steady support. However, when he realizes that the chaos is not a series of isolated incidents but a perpetual state of being, and that your dependency is not a temporary need but a bottomless void, a profound and weary despair sets in. He comes to understand that he is not being treated as a partner or companion, but as a human shield against someone else's profound inability to self-regulate. He is being used as an emotional shock absorber. The relationship transforms from a mutual connection into a parasitic one. You become an energy vampire, and he can feel the very life force, his passion, and his peace of mind being slowly and inexorably drained from him. The weight of this unwanted custodianship is a heavy chain that drags him down into depths of emotional exhaustion he is uniquely ill-equipped to handle. The aftermath, the ghost in the fortress. When a Sigma male soul is truly and profoundly damaged through these methods, the external world does not typically witness a dramatic, theatrical breakdown. There are no public scenes of weeping, no loud accusations, no visible scar for all to see. The process of destruction is internal, silent, and deeply private. Outsiders may simply see a man who has become a ghost of his former self. The vibrant, curious light in his eyes extinguishes, replaced by a flat, distant emptiness. He may become colder, more detached, and permanently close off, his already formidable emotional barriers now solidified into impenetrable fortresses of stone and ice. Or he may simply disappear. He is a master of the strategic withdrawal. One day, he is there. The next, he has changed cities, changed jobs, changed his phone number, and severed all contact with the world that hosted his violation. He cuts the anchor lines and sets sail for an unknown horizon, preferring the uncertainty of solitude to the certain agony of a poisoned connection. The damage is not a temporary injury that time can heal. It is often permanent, a fundamental rewiring of his capacity for risk and connection. He doesn't shatter into pieces. Instead, he solidifies. The soft, organic parts of him, the trust, the openness, the hope, calcify and become as hard as diamond, immune to future attempts at connection, whether genuine or malicious. The ultimate tragedy of this destruction extends far beyond the personal harm inflicted upon one individual. The true tragedy is that the world is diminished by his absence, even if that absence is merely spiritual. It loses what he, in his unique and authentic way, had to offer: his unconventional perspective, his quiet, unwavering integrity, his fierce independence, and his genuine, undiluted self. The Sigma male is a rare and valuable archetype not because he is perfect or superior, but because he is a testament to authenticity in a world saturated with performance and conformity. To deliberately seek out and damage that spirit is not merely a personal transgression. It is an act of cultural and spiritual impoverishment, a loss to everyone who values what is real, what is steadfast, and what is authentically itself over what is merely loud, popular, and performed. Do these ideas resonate with you? If you found yourself nodding along or reflecting deeply on the traits and experiences we explored in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts. The Sigma male mindset isn't often talked about openly, and your perspective, whether you identify with it personally or have encountered it in others, adds valuable depth to the conversation. Drop a comment below and let me know. Which part hit home the most for you? Have you seen these traits in yourself or someone you know? Your insights help build a community where authenticity and growth are prioritized over popularity and performance. If you're drawn to this kind of introspective, no-nonsense content around Sigma males, psychological strength, emotional intelligence, and high-value living, there's more waiting for you. Explore the other videos on this channel for deeper dives, actionable insights, and raw truths that cut through the noise. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay unapologetically real. Until next time.